Hi, Franktown students. It's Miss Greenberg coming at you, ready to read. We're going to read some chapter books because I love chapter books and I don't have anybody else to read them to anymore because all my kids are too old to be read to. But I loved reading to my kids when they were growing up. It was my favorite thing to do. It was like the last thing that we would do at night was read a story together, read a chapter, and we always chose really great series of books. And so I have one series left from all my kids, and it's the Humphrey books. I don't know if you've heard of them. So it's about a little hamster. So I have a few. We got that one. I got that one. I got that one. They're all fun. I got that one. I got that one. I don't have them all because I checked a lot of them out at the library. But we're going to start on this one. It's called Friendship According to Humphrey. Humphrey is a little hamster. He's so cute and sweet. And he is the school hamster. He lives at the school. He belongs to one of the teachers, and the teacher's name is Miss Brisbane. And so Humphrey always learns a new lesson in every book, in every story. So we're going to obviously talk about friendship in this one. So if you have this book, you can run and go grab it right now and read right along with us. We're just going to be reading a chapter a day. And so if you guys want to do this at night, as like your little nighttime reading, or if you are just bored out of your mind and you have nothing else to do and you're like, well, I'll just go listen to Miss Greenberg because she's reading books, then you can do that. But anyway, here we go. Friendship According to Humphrey. And it doesn't have any pictures for me to show you, so you just have to listen. Sorry. Okay, so chapter 1 is called Strange Change. Bump, bump, bump. Miss Brisbane and I were headed back to Longfellow School after the long winter holiday. But there were a lot more bumps in the road since the last time I rode in her small blue station wagon. Now, Humphrey, Miss Brisbane said, and she was interrupted by another bump. Don't be surprised, bump, if there are a few changes, bump, in room 26, bump. My stomach felt slightly queasy as I hung on tightly to my ladder, so I had a hard time understanding what was she telling me. What did she mean by changes? While you were home with Bert, bump, I came back to school to set things all up. I was home with her husband, Bert, over a lot of the holidays. As much as I liked him, I was worn out from running mazes a couple of times a day. Miss Brisbane loved to watch me run mazes. At least back in school, I could catch 40 winks once in a while. And since I'm a classroom hamster, I do belong in the classroom. My stomach calmed down a bit as Miss Brisbane pulled her car into a parking space. Now, what about these changes? I asked, but it came out as squeak, 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 as usual. It's good to shake things up once in a while, Humphrey, Miss Brisbane assured me as she opened the car door. You'll see. I was already shaken up from the bumpy ride, and then a blast of icy wind made me shiver, and I couldn't see a thing because Miss Brisbane had thrown a wool scarf over my cage. I didn't mind as long as I was on my way back to the classroom, where I'd see all my friends again, and just thinking about them gave me a warm feeling, or maybe it was the heat from the school furnace as we walked into the front door. Hi, Sue. Are we on for today? A familiar voice called out. I couldn't see Miss Loomis, but I recognized her voice. Miss Loomis taught a class down the hall. She was also Miss Brisbane's friend. Sure, Angie. What about our afternoon recess? See you then, said Miss Loomis. And finally, Miss Brisbane set my cage down in room 26 and removed the scarf. And when she did, I was in for a shock. Something unsqueakable had happened to my classroom. For one thing, the tables faced the wrong direction. They used to point toward the front of the room, and now they were sideways. Instead of being arranged in nice, neat rows like before, the tables were clumped together in groups. Miss Brisbane's desk had moved to the corner of the room. Pictures of people I had never seen before replaced the happy snowmen that had covered the bulletin board in December. I was dizzy from all the changes, and I didn't notice the room filling up with a "Lower your voice," AJ yelled, "Hiya, Humphrey," as he came out of the cloakroom. And soon my other friends stopped by to say hello. "Did you have a good vacation?" asked Miranda Golden. Miranda is an almost perfect human. That's why I think of her as Amanda Golden. "My mother says to tell you hi," Speak Up Saya said in her sweet, soft voice. "Hey, Humphrey Dumpy," Garth shouted. That made Gail snicker, but I didn't mind. She laughed at everything. And at that moment the bell rang. "Class, look for your names and please take your seats now," Miss Brisbane said. There was a lot of thumping and bumping as my classmates located their new seats. And now I had a better view of some of the students who used to sit opposite side of the room. Like, "Don't Complain Mandy Payne," "Sit Still Seth Stevenson," and I think I heard that Kirk Chen. Maybe it was good to shake things up once in a while. And then I noticed something odd. There was a stranger in room 26 sitting near Saya and Gail and Kurt. "Miss Brisbane, she doesn't belong here," I squeaked out loud. "She's in the wrong room." Well, maybe Miss Brisbane didn't hear me. Class, as you can see, we're making some changes this year, and one of our changes is our brand new pupil, the teacher announced. "Come here, Tabitha." The new girl seemed scared as she got up and stood next to Miss Brisbane. "This is Tabitha Clark, and I want you all to welcome her. Tabitha, why don't you tell us something about yourself?" The new girl looked down and shook her head, and Miss Brisbane quickly turned back to the class. "Well, we'll do that later. Now, who would like to be in charge of showing Tabitha around today?" "Me!" a voice called out. Of course, it was Raise Your Hand, Heidi Hopper. She always forgets to raise her hand. "Hands, please, Heidi." I think Mandy had her hand up first. "Mandy, will you be Tabitha's buddy? I expect each of you to introduce yourself to Tabitha and include her in your activities." She turned to the girl. "I know you're going to make lots of friends in room 26. You may sit down now." The girl kept staring down at the floor as she returned to her seat. She looked as if she needed a friend, and I was so busy watching her I only half listened to what Miss Brisbane was saying. Was she really talking about poultry? "After all, this is Longfellow School," she said, and I hope you know, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow was a famous American poet. "Poetry," she said. "Nothing to do with chickens or turkeys, thank goodness. I have to admit, I'm a little scared of things with feathers. Ever since my early days at Petorama, I still have nightmares about the day a large green parrot escaped and flung himself at my cage, screeching, 'Yum, yum, time to eat, bark, bark.'" He was still shrieking as Carl, the store clerk, carried him away. That unpleasant memory was interrupted when someone blurted, "I'm a poet, and I don't know it. My feet show it. They're Longfellow's." "I heard that, Kirk," said Miss Brisbane. Now, as I was saying, much of this term will be spent reading and writing poetry. The groans were loud. I guess some people were afraid of poetry even without feathers. Seth squirmed in his seat and pretended to pound his head on a table. "Poetry," he moaned. Sit still, Seth," said Miss Brisbane. Sitting still was not easy for Seth. Now that he was practically right in front of me, I could see him wiggling and jiggling in his chair, which made Gail Morgenstern laugh. "Stop giggling, Gail," Miss Brisbane warned. Gail stopped giggling and started hiccuping. "Please go get a drink of water," Miss Brisbane told her. She turned to the new girl. "Tabitha, please put that toy away." Everyone stared at Tabitha, including me. She was cradling a scruffy stuffed bear in her arms. The gray bear had cotton coming out of his ears and wore washed-out blue overalls with a missing button. Even his smile seemed a little faded. "Now, please," Miss Brisbane said. It was quiet in the room, thank goodness. I'm afraid if Gail had been there, we would have heard peals of laughter and heaps of hiccups. Tabitha slid the shaggy bear into the slot in her table without a word. Right about then, Mr. Principal Morales marched through the door. Sorry for interrupting, Miss Brisbane. I just want to personally welcome you all back to school. The principal looked spiffy with a tie that had little pencils all over it. He always wore a tie because he was the most important person at Longfellow School. Thank you, Mr. Morales, said Miss Brisbane. We have a new student, Tabitha Clark, and a whole new setup for our class, as you can see. Welcome, Tabitha, said the principal. I'm sure you'll love it here at room 26, and I'm glad to see that our friend Humphrey is back as well. He walked all the way across the classroom to my cage. Glad to see it, I squeaked in my loudest squeak. Hi, old pal, he greeted me. He turned back to the rest of the class. You all can learn a lot from Humphrey, and I wish you a very successful semester. After he left, I turned my attention back to Tabitha. She was still staring straight down.